how have we come to this?
Yeah.
I'm absolutely livid. I think Sadiq Khan brings such dishonour. I think he is a curse on this city.
Ideally, Putin would retreat, Ukraine gets its borders back. But realistically, I just don't see that happening.
I hope that King Charles comes to the decision that really he needs to exile his badly behaved brother ASAP.
It's the start of the week, so let's get you energised with a huge dose of the Daily Expresso. I'm JJ Anisiobi, and today I'm joined by the wonderful Belinda DeLucy. Belinda, how are you doing?
Oh, great. Lovely to be here as always.
I love to see you're wearing black today, representing the death of London.
Death of London, death of democracy, death of free speech. But don't worry, I'll be in bright yellow, pink and rainbow. Not well. I have to be careful here. You know, it's always darkest before the dawn.
True.
JJ.
Very true. Very true. Right, we are starting with a big one today. An exclusive investigation led by the Daily Express has uncovered evidence that grooming gangs have been operating in London. Documents obtained by journalists allege that young girls were raped in hotels, drugged and threatened by groups of men, all while Mayor Sadiq Khan publicly downplayed the reports. Both Shadow Home Secretary Chris Philp and Reform UK's Lee Anderson accused the mayor of facilitating a cover-up, calling it a betrayal of victims and demanding answers. And one survivor, the survivor who is remaining anonymous, says the mayor's denials are gaslighting those who've already suffered unimaginable abuse. So, has Britain really learned anything from Rochdale and Rotherham? Belinda, this is crazy. This is not the first time, by the way, that the Express have probed this topic and uncovered huge amounts of evidence and witness statements from people saying there are grooming gangs in the capital. How the hell has Sadiq Khan been able to dodge questions about this time and time again? In fact, actually, let's have a look at Susan Hall holding him to account on this.
You know exactly what I mean by that. These gangs of people that are grooming young girls for sex. Do we actually have those in London?
To enable me to give a full answer, can she be clear what she means by that? I'm not clear what she means.
How much clearer do you want me to be? Look at the gangs that they've uncovered in other parts of the country. Do we have those gangs in London? It's a simple question. The answer is very simple. It's yes or no. I'm not asking you where those gangs are because the police might not want them to be disclosed. I'm asking you, do we have those sort of gangs in London?
So Susan Hall there asking the questions and him dodging and evading every single time.
There is a special place in hell, JJ, for adults who turn a blind eye to paedophiles raping children. Mm-hmm. And at every level of power in this country, heads have not rolled. And Sadiq Khan is clearly, I mean, from watching that, I actually felt my skin crawl. Mm-hmm. I felt I was in the presence of one of the cover-up enablers, whether it was through social workers or police or local authorities or even in government. It gives me a really uneasy feeling about how these adults operate to try and cover up the mass rape of children in this country. And Sadiq Khan, the way he spoke to Susan Hall, was bullying, was gaslighting. It wasn't just obviously incredibly rude to her, but what an insult to all the victims of rape in this capital city. Yeah. That even mentioning, even asking, you know, how many are there, threw Khan into some kind of, I don't care, I don't know, what do you mean? Pretending he didn't even understand what a grooming gang meant. This is an assault on all of us, and it shows a rotting at the core of Sadiq Khan. And I'm absolutely horrified and disgusted by the man and his reaction, and to have learned no lessons, JJ. Think about how brave those little girls from Rotherham, Rochdale, Oxford, Bradford, up and down the country had to be to go and give their testimony, to go and report what had actually happened to their little broken bodies. Mm-hmm. The bravery it took in that climate where they were looked down on and sneered at, you know, by politicians and so many people in this country took such guts, but they did it, I believe, in part so that it would stop happening to little girls. And what did Labour do? Well, they said no to a rape grooming gang inquiry several times. They then brought in blasphemy laws. So the very climate that enabled these child rapists to act with impunity, the fear of being called Islamophobic, the fear of being called racist, Labour put it on steroids. Thought, wow, that's a blueprint. We'll work on that. How dare they? How dare they treat the children of this country like that? And this incredible former detective, highly decorated, John Wedger, came out with a report of these little girls being picked up from care homes, taken to crack houses, being sold for 10 rocks to be gang raped, then moved on to hotels where they were gang raped again, and then moved on to Arabic restaurants where they were paid £2,000 a night, and then dropped back at the care homes afterwards. He gave this evidence. He reported this, ignored by the local councils, and he claims that a senior police officer told him when he showed the report to him, don't you dare let this get out. You'll lose your house, you'll lose your home, you'll lose your job. And this is the fear. You've basically got to keep quiet about these gangs or your job will be in jeopardy. How have we come to this? Yeah. How can we not protect our children anymore? I'm absolutely livid. I think Sadiq Khan brings such dishonour. I think he is a curse on this city. I think it's like having a plague and no vaccination. And it makes me sickened that he has any position of power in London.
If Sadiq Khan was made aware of these reports, surely this means he has to resign.
He has to, but I don't think he will. Through some sorcery, he keeps winning elections. No one I know, I've ever spoken to in London, thinks anything but the worst of him. I think he will hold on to power for as long as he can. It's very interesting. There's a fabulous freelance journalist called Charlotte Gill. I urge any viewers to look her up. She's doing a huge expose on Sadiq Khan at the moment about his actual jobs, because being Mayor of London, would you believe it, she claims, is not his first job. His first job is to co-chair the C40 City Group, which is a globalist organisation. Right, yes. And it is a sort of UN agenda pushed sustainable mass
this
city
is why
thing.
He's always flying around
That's why he's always in Paris and on yachts. And that's his first job. He doesn't care about Londoners. Why do you think he's taxing them with ULEZ, nurses and teachers trying to get to work? Oh, we'll slap a tax on them. Why doesn't he care about knife crime? All he does is play the blame game. Bang on about Gaza, bang on about LGBT whatevers, ban bikini adverts. You know, this is the mayor that on his website had a photo of a white family, underneath it saying, this photo does not represent real Londoners. This man wants to cut our capital city off from England, from the UK, from having anything to do with us and make it his own little kingdom. He has to go. He has to go. You can tell how upset I am that he's still there. You know, this is an ancient British capital city. My God, get out, please.
Well, who can dethrone Khan? Because I think living in London, I think London, it is a bubble of its own. I don't think it's truly representative of the rest of the country at all. I just don't see anyone from any other party who can come in, apart from Boris Johnson. I think Boris Johnson could beat him if he chose to.
Still, really?
I still think Boris Johnson could still win over the Londoners, but I don't think anyone else can.
Well, Reform, I think, of a good candidate. I believe it's Layla Cunningham.
Okay.
She's an incredible woman, brilliant. I mean, I don't know if anyone's seen her on BBC Newsnight, and my God, she's formidable. She takes apart everyone. She had a fabulous go at Zach Polanski the other day, and I believe she might be standing to represent Reform. I can't definitely confirm that. She'd be fantastic. You've got Ant Middleton, who is a wonderful candidate as well. But it's about uniting London. It's about trying to get people out to vote, because I think a lot of people have given up voting. Yeah. So it's about getting those voters back into those ballot box houses and trying to get Sadiq Khan, because I do think it's an issue with national security. I don't believe he works for British interests. I think he has foreign interests involved with all his other jobs. So there should be a huge investigation into Sadiq Khan and what he's up to.
And from cover-ups in Whitehall to a fiery showdown at the White House. Reports say President Trump's talks with Ukraine's Zelenskyy spiralled into a shouting match, with Trump warning that Putin will destroy Ukraine if Kyiv doesn't accept Moscow's terms. After the tense meeting, Trump called for both sides to stop where they are, effectively freezing the war along current front lines and implying Russia should keep the territory it's already seized. He later posted on Truth Social, "Let both claim victory, let history decide." And as the world reacts, our own readers seem divided too. Only 24% of you say that Trump deserves a Nobel Peace Prize if he ends the war, while 74% of you say absolutely not. So, has Trump just pitched himself as peacemaker, or handed Putin exactly what he wants? Belinda, I remember talking about this war when it first escalated, and I said, "There's no way that this is going to end with Putin removing his troops from what is currently classed as Ukrainian. Ukraine are going to have to give up some land to Russia. That's going to be it." And I also think that Ukraine will have to say they're not going to join NATO Putin does not want the West on his borders, which I think that's fine. I think that it's fine for him to believe that. Yet we've seen so much loss, so many people on both sides dead, cities destroyed, and it looks like what could have saved it from all happening at all may now be the most likely outcome.
I think Trump is certainly the only leader in the world that I believe has the ability to stop the war. How it's stopped is obviously important, because if it's just a case of, Ukraine, you have to give everything to Russia, I wouldn't support that at all. But I think Trump was playing theatrics there. I think he has a very delicate balance to deliver to keep Putin coming to the table. And so he plays Zelenskyy and Putin off each other a little bit. But man, he's a ball-breaking, deal-making Rambo. And this is just, you may find him brash, you may find him offensive, but he does get deals done. The EU couldn't deliver peace if they tried. The EU has given more money to Russia since Russia invaded Ukraine through buying energy and gas than they have given Ukraine in financial aid, indirectly financing Russia's war against Ukraine. The EU are useless. The UK doesn't have that big power that America does, so they can't do it on their own. So actually it is only Trump. Zelenskyy certainly can't do it. And he's becoming more and more unpopular in Ukraine itself, so you've got to balance that up with everything. I think it will take Trump. I do think what you hear around the shouting matches is just sort of playing it all up, because after Trump said, you're going to have to give Donbass, the region of Donbass, back to Putin. And then, a few moments later, he was like, oh, well, just stop where you are, wherever that is, and then retreat. So I think he will soften his language, but he's saying what he thinks Putin might want to hear to keep him engaged. And last week he was saying to Zelenskyy, don't worry, we'll get all your territory back. He flip-flops and yo-yos because it is unfortunately a game. And it is willy waving. It is. On the European stage, let's be honest. And at the moment, I think he's King Kong. So all good luck to him. Should he deserve a Nobel Peace Prize? Well, it absolutely depends on the terms, because I don't think any country can accept being invaded and surrendering huge amounts of its territory. 1 million Russians have been killed. 450,000 Ukrainians have been killed, all because Putin decided to invade. And if you think about it, in World War II, there was about 450,000 Brits that were killed in the entirety of World War II. So it's already at 1.5 million that have died in this war. That's 1.5 million, men and women that will never have children or never get to see their It's really sad. And I feel for the Ukrainians so much in that moment. I wish they had a better leader, but hopefully with Trump, they'll get some sort of compromise.
Yeah, I think Trump is just extremely realistic about everything. So, yes, ideally, Putin would retreat, Ukraine gets its borders back. But realistically, I just don't see that happening. And I think Trump also sees that.
Yeah, I do. I think there will probably end up being some of the territory going to Putin. And I'm sure Zelenskyy will want to make it as tiny as possible. And then what happens after the war? We're all going to be faced with a massive bill of rebuilding Ukraine. The British taxpayer isn't going to be happy about that. So it actually, it needs to stop as soon as possible, not just to save lives, but to stop Europe from going bankrupt and to help start rebuilding Ukraine. I really wish them all the best, but it does need to end as soon as possible.
Last week's dramatic royal shake-up saw Prince Andrew give up his titles amid mounting pressure over his ties to Jeffrey Epstein and allegations from Virginia Giuffre, a move her family have since called a victory for survivors everywhere. Andrew says he's stepping back to avoid distracting the royal family, though he'll still technically remain a prince. So he's out of the headlines, but not completely out of the palace. The move comes after continuing scrutiny over his past links to Epstein, including being listed on flights with the disgraced financier, and in the wake of Giuffre's memoir hitting shelves this week. Critics say the timing shows just how much of a distraction Andrew has become for the family. And the decision has finally drawn a line under one of the most controversial chapters in modern royal history. Disagree entirely. I don't think it has drawn a line under it. I think what this shows us, actually, Belinda, is that the royal family should have punished him properly 6-7 years ago when these allegations first came out. I don't think he should have ever got away with having Mummy pay the millions to Virginia to settle out of court. If I was accused of something heinous, I would no way in any shape or form be willing to pay someone to stop saying a lie about me. Apparently, he was okay with that.
I think the only silver lining to our great late monarch no longer being here is that Elizabeth II get to witness this shame that Andrew's brought to his family. I doubt the royal family knew everything 6 years ago. I really don't think Andrew probably fed them a right old yarn.
Yeah.
But this can't go on. It can't continue. We can't keep seeing damage being done to the monarchy by these reprobates. I mean, we've had them before. We had Queen Victoria's eldest son, Edward VII, also known as Dirty Bertie, also known as Edward the Caresser, who, had so many scandalous affairs and womanising stories about him. And it does take place in very privileged, big, powerful families. But being born into the royal family is such a privilege.
Yeah.
And with it comes great responsibility. And Andrew, unfortunately, it looks like has treated that gift he was given in such an arrogant way, not believing that his actions, he should take any responsibility over them. Reading Virginia's book about what happened, that she was choked and hit and beaten throughout all this sort of trafficking that she was involved in. My God, if Andrew knew that she was, being supplied, why didn't he tell the newspapers? Why? This is what we're talking about in the country right now. It doesn't matter if you're royal, doesn't matter what class background you come from. If you're involved in trafficking of children, my God, you either deserve to be behind bars. So it's not even just that he might not be in a royal palace anymore. Who knows if the police get involved in the claim that Andrew asked his staff to dig up dirt on this Virginia Dufresne, I think it is.
Yeah.
Who that famous photo that he was seen with, standing there with the 17-year-old. He asked his staff to dig up dirt on her, find out she had a criminal history. It's all sounding dodgier and dirtier and darker. But you know what's very interesting, JJ? It only seems to be British high-profile people that are getting any news about this, from Mandelson to Ghislaine Maxwell to Prince Andrew. Where's the list in America?
Yeah.
It's very, very quiet over there.
Trump said he was going to release the files. He never did.
I know. It's very interesting. So it's interesting why the focus is only on Brits at the moment, but they should be behind bars if they're involved in anything criminal. Andrew should, I believe, have his titles taken away, but I do think it's up to the royal family, not Parliament. You don't want Parliament having the power to take titles away from the royal family, because, my God, if we suddenly have a king or queen that's as patriotic as Elizabeth, they'll probably vote to have them removed. I don't trust Parliament at the moment with those sort of powers. So I hope that King Charles comes to the decision that really he needs to exile his badly behaved brother ASAP.
So they say this is a victory for survivors, and I wonder if it is really a victory. Okay, he loses his titles. He's always going to be a prince by birth. That's his right. And he's going to stay living in a 20, 25, 30 bedroom mansion, whatever it is. He's going to be living a nice privileged life. Is it really a victory for survivors?
Well, I don't know. You've got the grooming gang leaders in Rochdale being out on the streets 9 years after they're supposed to be deported. I think that's far worse to worry about, that we've got these predators living side by side with their poor victims because our Home Office is too cowardly to actually deport these mass child rapists and gang leaders back to their country of origin. I think that is far more scandalous. Obviously, I want justice for Epstein's victims, clearly, and I think Andrew's got a lot of attention over it, quite rightly negative attention, but I only wish the same attention had been levelled at all the horrific things the grooming gang rapists were did do. They just get off with it or spend a handful of years in prison and get to walk the streets again.
Yeah. Okay, from Sandringham to Paris, the home of croissants, romance, and apparently a very ambitious jewel heist. In a brazen 7 minutes at the Louvre, a gang of high-vis-wearing thieves stormed the museum using chainsaws and made off with priceless jewellery once belonging to Napoleon and Josephine. The thieves were in such a hurry they even dropped the Eugenie crown while fleeing, proving that even master criminals have their own clumsy moments. French President Macron called it an attack on our heritage. Officials say nobody was hurt and a criminal investigation is underway. So, Belinda, chainsaws at the Louvre. This sounds like some kind of crack novel.
Absolutely. If the guillotine still existed in France right now, heads would find their way into baskets. It is a deep wound inflicted on the French people. I think they see the crown jewels as being part of them, their heritage, their history. It's like a crime committed against all French people. This is like the crown jewels. And it said that actually some of the pieces were gifts from Napoleon to his beloved Josephine, which is It's one of the greatest love stories of all time. This is definitely going to be made into a movie, by the way. I can already see where it's going, especially if there were any of the team were, partners or in love, or there was any kind of sob story behind it all. I think it's really sad because they're such well-known pieces and historically important. They're not going to be able to sell them. So the likelihood is they're going to melt down these beautiful pieces of jewellery. And there were suggestions the police are looking at the Belgian border because, of course, in Belgium there's a huge diamond market there.
Of course, yes.
So I think they're guarding that border very closely. But what on earth is going on at the Louvre? It's reported that 1 out of the 3 rooms that was stolen from didn't even have CCTV cameras. That they just had to hop a balcony and then hop, skip and a jump with using a bit of drilling, a bit of glass cutting. It does feel like a weird movie, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And they managed to threaten security guards to evacuate the place and then just do all their naughty work. I hope they get caught. I hope it's a happy ending. And, here's to the producer that gets the movie rights.
So I've got a sinister theory about this.
Yeah.
I think there is some big, either Russian oligarch or some rich Saudi man who has paid them to go and get these jewels.
Yeah, well, it wouldn't surprise me if Russia was involved because, of course, there's now evidence that Russia are facilitating all the human trafficking and smuggling gangs trying to bring chaos into Europe.
It's working.
It is, that they're behind it. People need to know that Russia are not our friends. Well, Putin and his oiks are not our friends at all at the moment. They kill people on our soil. They're facilitating illegal break-ins to our country. And so perhaps they're behind the break-in to the Louvre as well. But it is a real wound, I think. Imagine if it's like the Notre Dame being set on fire, or it would be like, our crown jewels or our Tower of London being set on fire. It is a deep wound to the nation's consciousness. So I do hope they're found out. My goodness, let's start, getting some Russian crims in jail, for goodness sake, if it is them.
Belinda, thank you so much. Wonderful as always. That is all we have time for. But join us again tomorrow on the Daily Expresso, where we are joined by Penny Mordaunt. Bye-bye.